Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Pinball Arcade. So last time we did Fireball 2, which was kind of a surprisingly early sequel to Fireball 1. Fireball 2 coming out in 83, Fireball 1 coming out in 80. Today we're doing Going Nuts, which feels like it is probably a predecessor in theme, probably only, to the um, Caddyshack thematic pinball that we'll see later in the 90s. Going Nuts 1983 is one of the rarest pinball tables ever. It never made it into production as new management considered wider tables too expensive to mass produce. Each turn begins with a 3-ball multi-ball and there are no outlanes. The unique style of timer-based gameplay and the rarity of this table makes it a classic collector's item this day. Only 10 units were made as engineering samples. Now, this really highlights something here. Obviously, I did not play Going Nuts in the real world. I have never played it before, even virtually. And this is where Pinball Arcade could have easily set itself apart because it had that relationship with the real world pinball designers. It could potentially get these extremely rare only 10 units were made or only 1 units were made. Honestly, there probably are some tinkers or makers by modern parlance who have made their own custom pinball tables, and Pinball Arcade could have said, "Hey, let us license and scan your pinball table, and we'll um, give you a percentage on the sales to individuals who had made their own custom tables, just Frankensteining parts left and right." Um, but we kind of can see that of all the tables, since I have basically access to all the tables in this game, they couldn't go too far with that. And I imagine this probably is a case where there's not too much around that idea, anyways, uh, because there would definitely be some exhaustion if we started to see hundreds upon hundreds of pool tables that are unrecognizable or just not particularly well thought out. This definitely feels like a table designed to be friendly, or a half designed table, even. You can see in this lower play field, there's basically no way to lose other than draining out in the center. So unless this timer gameplay mechanism means you only have a certain amount of time per ball, that seems like that's gonna work just fine. There seems to be some kind of launcher. Yeah, the launcher just goes up here and then shoots, so it doesn't even go all the way to the top. So they're kind of breaking with tradition quite a bit. And then I'm not sure where you lock the balls. There's another flipper up here at the top where you can hit some flippers, and then there's a trapped ball. And the entire theme seems to be you want to knock down all the blue nuts and the yellow nuts and the white nuts and the red nuts and the green nuts. And I assume what the way that goes is you are just lining up all 3 drop down targets. Completing all nuts lights the extra squirrel or extra ball. I don't know if the theme in particular of squirrels collecting nuts is that interesting, but it's not crazy. You can see how these bumpers have like no art on top of them, and they're just unbranded plain bumpers. The bumpers are in a weird alignment, to say the least. They're doing the thing we saw in the previous tables, where they're putting bumpers just on the edge instead of having a bunch of slingshots. Um, but overall, it does definitely feel like this was a version 1.0 of a table that would need some rethinking. Like, I like this upper play field in this flipper, although arguably why not put the flipper where this bumper is and go all the way across the table? And you can't really even hit these targets particularly easily. That's just going to be randomness of this bumper hitting against a slingshot to get to that. There's really no reason why you wouldn't want to launch your ball all the way up to the top. I guess the joke of this being called Going Nuts is the idea that this is all about multi-ball and all about having too much on the table in all places. You've got this really big triangle in the middle of the upper or mid play field taking up a lot of space. You've got what seems to be maybe one standing target over here on the left, but maybe not even that. It seems like the multi-ball probably is through an automatic launcher, yeah. So this is not a plunger only, it's also a automatic launcher that will launch balls and start the multi-ball. So you don't lock any balls for multi-ball, which that often makes it too easy, but as if there's a complicated way in which you trigger multi-ball, that's fine. The art here is all done, where I would have thought that the artwork itself would have probably been the last thing you would have had done, where I think the table layout here could easily have been improved upon. But certainly you can't really highlight a real issue here when you're playing a table that literally never existed. And so this flyer, for instance, must have been made after the fact. It's like 7 pop-up bumpers, 4 flippers, and yeah, this is a real-world photo of the table. So what are our goals going to be? Earn an extra squirrel, increase the timer to 180 seconds, relaunch 1 ball from the roll unders, earn 250,000 point bonus, and score 1,000,000 points. And no way to get to 8 balls. So that you can see this is a button launcher. And I did not press the launcher button, by the way. It just automatically started without me. So I'm going to have to figure out what camera angle I want. So you've just got a ton of stuff going on this table. And the good shots are going to be around keeping or returning to a multi-ball scenario, and figuring out how otherwise to improve your chances and odds. Interesting. The plunger button is not working. The plunger has been the right stick this whole time, but for a button, it's not doing anything. This is a kind of a great example. Like, I'm not sure what makes certain bumpers glow. I'm not sure how to get certain places. This definitely feels like it comes from the idea of being kid-friendly, although I don't know if it really is, because you're still in a weird position. And for the digital version of this, you're always going to have to be zoomed out, because you're going to, more often than not, always be in a multi-ball mode, or hope that you're in a multi-ball mode. So, shoot it up that way. That didn't start a multi-ball again, so I thought shooting up that lane was the thing that was triggering the multi-ball when the purple spot was blinking. If it were an industry standard that there was no out lanes, this would be much more acceptable, but this definitely feels more like a toy, and the fact that it just straight up said time up on me. Apparently up on the D-pad might trigger the balls launching, which that's going to be weird for ball control. This is a table that definitely screams a need for having ball control if you really wanted to do something. See, not only do you have to succeed, you have to gain more time back. And it's not like everything you hit gives you 1 second. And then the flippers just stop working. Nope, it's not the D-pad either. Not the left stick. Not nudging. Maybe when you're in multi-ball, that's where you build up your time. Because it says timer 21. And now it's counting down. Okay. So you start with the multi-ball. And you've got to get a really good run with the multi-ball to build back time. Build up your time. Otherwise, you just lose. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it says on the timer. So nothing actually launches the balls. So you can't even speed up the start of the game. There's just two different themes and concepts here, really. One would be a countdown, which would make more sense if this was a bomb counting down, and one would be going crazy and hitting multi-ball. Immediate drain out. I've never seen a table so focused on the idea of having to just keep the ball in play during multi-ball. Sure, that's what everybody would like, but there's basically no targets at all to hit. No bigger goal. Just random assortment of flinging of pinballs. And it does make this whole table just feel like it is baby's first pinball game. And that's fine if you have a row of 5 or 6 pinball tables. Having something like this would have worked, but you have to be fairly careful and with it, because I think even kids would fairly quickly get frustrated with this in a few places. Like, kids would absolutely hate running out of time, nor would they understand the time mechanics, which took me basically 2 games to even figure out. On top of that, even if the kids could succeed very well here, I think they're going to be fairly bored with the table anyways, because there's the green and maybe the red drop downs are somewhat doable, and everything else is insanely undoable. You just would have to get really, really lucky to get the yellow and blue. I imagine in the real world there was a start button where the plunger would be, and then it would start the countdown on the screen. That being said, we can hear that there's some missing sound effects that would have been really appreciated, where it would talk to you and say 5, 6, and see you have that opportunity to potentially have it say 5, 6, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in a high-pitched squirrel voice, which would have given some character to the table. Yeah, this doesn't even particularly feel like a wide-body pinball table compared to Genie. Compared to, I had totally forgotten about the captive ball up there. Centaur. This feels just like a regular pinball table, although it's still very much an experimental table. Getting that far right ramp is quite the shot. Getting up to the far right or the far left is fairly difficult. And you've got this timer wasting your time the whole time. You don't even really have bonus carryover, it seems. Not enough. Maybe you do actually carry over the bonuses. There's absolutely no numbers on this table either. So it's just assigning a point value. I don't know if I'm multiplying the score bonus every time I fill a row of nuts, or if I'm just increasing it once, or what. That's just completely unexplained. And you really cannot make a table where you potentially have to have all the players go read the instructions somewhere. This should be idiot-proof. Even the standard goal of getting up to 180 seconds seems close to impossible to actually pull off. I'm getting like 20, 30 seconds at most. Although maybe if I can get the balls to hit the bumpers and get multiple balls, then I could get the score up. Because it does seem like it is the bumpers that are adding time. It would really suck if bumpers took away time when you're out of multi-ball. This is a flipper intense pinball table by far. In a funny way, it's kind of like the exact opposite of Fireball 1, where every shot in Fireball 1 is thought through and considered, and you know what you're aiming for, and there's really only one thing to aim for anyways, in most scenarios. This one is just all about being random. So, I've got, I think, three of the rows of nuts all lit up, but I'm nowhere close to lighting up the oranges or the whites. So if there was some kind of expert goal around doing that, I don't think that's really going to happen. I don't know if there's really any reward for hitting the greens anymore. Yeah, this really does not feel like a QA tested game. It's just not that fun. Like, it has all the ideas of fun. In theory, if you explained this to me verbally, I would think, oh, that sounds like a really fun table. But in practicality, it's feels like it's a table that was designed by somebody who just had never made a pinball table before, or intentionally was making just so much experiments that they left normalcy at the door. Half of these bumpers, for as many bumpers as there are, a lot of these are just impossible to actually hit. That's why you only normally need one group of 3 bumpers in a triangle pattern. The classic formation. You'd think without out lanes it would be 3 times as hard to drain the ball, but it really isn't. And in a case like this, well, you could put a center peg or a ball saver feature, which a ball saver feature might work fine. You can't do a kickback because there aren't any out lanes anyways, which that means there's also like no rollovers that seem to line up. There's no spinners. And I don't even know what I would do to improve on the table like this. I'd probably start completely from scratch. The layout of everything is just so incredibly random. You could probably reduce the number of times you needed to hit the drop down targets. That probably would work somewhat. So instead of 5 lines of nuts, you go with 4 lines or even 3 lines of nuts. You could potentially have only 3 or 4 colors of nuts and mix them together. So it's not just one row of 3 or 4 yellows in one place. And then that would have you shooting in different areas, always. You could maybe have more than just acorn nuts being shown. I would need to get fairly good at the trapped ball shot at the top, but I think it's more important to probably get good at just getting the ball to the top left upper playfield. And keeping it there. Come on. 5 seconds to start another multi-ball. You definitely would have more to work with having a actual Caddyshack theme or an actual movie to theme your table on versus what was probably just a weird obsession with squirrels. At least I kind of hope whoever designed this table had a weird obsession with squirrels, because it would be even worse if it was just a lazy concept. First pitch meeting, somebody said, "What about squirrels collecting nuts?" Because they looked out the window, and that was as much thought as they put into it. And that very well may be exactly what did happen. Yeah, there could have easily been a lot of passion in the development of this table and just a lack of skill. It does highlight an issue, though, certainly. Somebody probably spent a year or two developing this table. They built 10 playable production development models. I imagine there's probably all kinds of development models for tables that eventually did get released that are slightly different and probably not likely to be any better. The only reason why this table is relevant is the fact that it is only 10 were ever made. Otherwise, this would have been forgotten completely. Same reason why a lot of issue number 1s from the 40s were collectibles, because very few were made and they weren't collected. Now issue 1s of a Marvel and DC, it happens so often, and collectors buy hundreds if not thousands of copies, that no issue 1 is likely to succeed from at least Marvel and DC. An issue 1 from some independent comic book creator might have some value someday, but just the general concept of something being an issue 1 is kind of unlikely to have a limited quantity. If anything, we're probably approaching a point where comic books will go completely digital, and then the last issue that's ever printed will potentially have some value decades in the future. Yep. It's not really my place to say, but I would suggest an opinion here that if Going Nuts had actually come out and say 600 copies or even 300 units were sold, I would say that this table is not worthy to be in the collection of the Pinball Arcade, which it is a curated collection, and until it hit a point where it committed to not being a curated collection and instead as much of a selection of all pinball tables as possible, I don't think that this table is good enough quality to be in that curated category. And if this were a static piece of art, and not a pinball table, these would be in museums, never to be played by anybody. With 10 of them in existence, I wouldn't be surprised if several of them are in museums behind glass, never to be played by anybody. We're getting too little sound effects. If I can hear the flippers and they're starting to irritate me, as they are in this table, that tells me that there's not enough sound effects going on, no background music. I don't even know what the background music would have been. Like this, some kind of banjo music or country. This would be my guess. That'd probably work fairly well. Alright, well, let's turn on ball control and let's see what that would take. So I glitched it with ball control immediately. So there should be 3 balls on the field, and instead there's only 2, which that works for me fine. So the blue is all lit up. Now we're going for yellow/orange. If I can pull that off. The yellow's all lit up. See, it seems to make the top ones blink sometimes, and not sometimes otherwise no. And then green is about the easiest one to hit, so let's instead focus on the white, which is pretty much the most difficult one to hit. With the ball control, it's totally possible to not have enough momentum to actually hit the drop-down targets. This is just killing my thumb, which the left trigger is also blistering my finger. I mean, the right trigger is. So, maybe just playing too much pinball in general. We are at 183 at this point seconds, so don't take that as an indicator that that's how long you would have had to play multi-ball. That's really an indicator of how many different targets you would have had to hit while in multi-ball. Okay. I want to hit the white one a little bit more. Interesting, we're kind of trapped in multi-ball mode because it's glitched. So I probably would have to tilt my way out of this. I'm at 850,000 score. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a wizard goal that somehow revolves around getting the timer up to like 999. One more green. I'm in red. Then the greens. This is just killing. Switch to my other thumb on the D-pad. That doesn't really work. Hitting the green seems to light up some of the bumpers, which maybe that's what the top lighting means. So we've got the extra squirrels. Yeah. So if you have one hit, it seems to light up several things, but not everything. Yeah, oddly though, we've just done the whole table goal. There's really nothing else here at all to hit. And so it would just be playing at this point. And so we'll just play until the ball drains out, but see, now at that point the timer starts, but there's no ball. So we have basically nothing we can do at this point other than tilt the ball or wait for what would be 240 seconds, which would be 60, 80 to 43 minutes in total. So inherently there is a bug there. Now some pinball tables, if they see the ball has not hit anything, will try to do a ball clear cycle, pop all the pop bumpers, and just fling all the slingshots, just to see if a ball is stuck in a common place where the ball would be stuck. However, if this table was going to do that, it would have done that a while ago. So let's just tilt instead, which tilting doesn't mean you lose all the points, because that would be a crazy amount of points to lose. And it doesn't even matter that I tilted, because it's still waiting for a ball to drain, which means I think we're pretty much out of order here either anyways. Which I guess does give us the opportunity to call the attendant. That's an interesting sound effect. But even calling the attendant, who would be able to reset it or fix it, is not doing anything. And I don't control the balls once they leave the field. So this entire game is more than likely just done with. Not a great table, not because I glitched it. That I'll take the blame for that one. But not a great table. Also, didn't really use the wide body concept well at all. It would have been very easy to squish down this table into a regular sized table. There would have been no real problem there. You could have cut a line directly in the middle and just moved every element towards the center, and there would have still been plenty of space. Plus, it would have fixed a few things. It would have given you a loop that goes all the way from the left side all the way to the right side and back and forth. Like, you really wouldn't have to have changed anything here to at least have more of these tables made. It's kind of crazy that a manager somewhere would totally abandon so much work. But undoubtedly, some of this design would have led to the next table design. Like, but yeah. Somebody definitely got paid to work for a year or two designing this and doing the art for this, and that just didn't work. Maybe that was the goal in the first place, is to have a failed project or a pinball table that was in development hell, as it were, become this collector's piece. And maybe they were trying to spur on the idea of collecting tables in the same way that comic book collecting had become a big deal. Alright, so there's literally nothing you can do here. And to get the sound effects to stop playing, you would have to come back all the way to this. Yeah, is there anything here? There's only 87 lines of dialogue as far as explaining it anyways. I kind of want to check this all-time scores leaderboard here. Let's see, overall, weekly. Let's see, so that doesn't seem like a crazy score. If anything, I would just be interested to see how many people actually even bothered to play a table like this. I'd say there's probably 1,000 people in the last week probably played this table, which that still isn't a decent community of pinball players. But yeah, Going Nuts deserved to be canceled, in my opinion. Not a good design at all. That's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.